Sure, a couple questions for Mr. Kennedy there. Did you ever have a chance to talk? Talk to Secretary Clinton about Freedom of Information requests regarding other things? Did this ever come up at all during your tenure?
No, sir. No, nor did it come up under Secretary Rice's tenure or when I was executive director of the Secretariat for Secretaries Baker and Schultz. This is handled by a special office who is led by very competent people.
Never talked about?
No, sir.
You ever meet Ms. Clinton?
Every morning, sir, when she was in town.
So all this time, and there was never some other Freedom of Information request that you felt was interesting enough that it should be mentioned?
Sir, I did not handle daily Freedom of Information Act requests. We have very, very professional staffs who do that. I responded. I received Freedom of Information Act requests that were brought to me about records I might have. I responded to them.
Any one of the other three of you, be it Secretary Clinton or Secretary Kerry, ever have any discussion at all with regard to Freedom of Information requests?
We certainly have had a number of them of general subjects.
Not you, I mean the other three. You said you've never talked about it.
You added Secretary Kerry, and so I was.
The other three of you?
Sir, I did have a conversation with Secretary Kerry about records preservation and FOIA processing when I was asked to do this job, and certainly can tell you that he has a great interest in looking into our procedures and practices to try to improve
Any of
them.
the other, and I'm not sure, how long were the others of you in your current office when Ms. Clinton was Secretary of State, or in the department?
I was in the department, sir, but I was not in my current position when Secretary Clinton was in office.
Do you ever have any interactions with her about Freedom of Information requests?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Finney?
No, sir.
Okay. In Ms. Lang's, and this is for Mr. Kennedy again, in Ms. Lang's deposition, she states the only way that State would have known if Secretary Clinton or Ms. Abadan turned over her emails responsive to the request would be their statements on the topic. Is that true? You're kind of just at the mercy of her own statements as to whether everything was turned over?
Currently, sir, there's three kinds of records in the State Department. There are what we call paper records, memorandums. There are telegraphic records, and there are email records. The telegraphic records and the paper records are maintained centrally, and that is what we are doing now, as Ambassador Jacobs has outlined, both with this capstone program and the other new program we're going to have in place by December 31st. That we will have all records captured.
Okay. Well, obviously you don't know if you have all records captured because a lot of these records were destroyed, correct?
I'm talking about, I thought your question was about the present time. By putting this system in, you will not be able to destroy an email record because it goes to your machine and it goes to a central repository, and you cannot extract it.
There was nothing at the time, though, nothing in place to make sure that these records were maintained at the time Secretary Clinton was Secretary?
Prior to 2014 and the change of the Federal Records Act and the new NARA standards, that was not a requirement then. But we still, as I said, if I might quickly, sir, I know your time is. We have not ever talked in this hearing today about there are really two major sources of records in the State Department. The memorandum records and the telegraphic records, those are centrally archived, and they are always locked in, locked down.
I think given, our concerns, our special concerns with regard to Secretary Clinton, I think the most important records are the records that show correspondence with her and people outside the building or outside the department, right? And
many of those, sir, are in our telegraphic and our paper archives. And I say paper archives, they're electronically maintained.
I mean the emails that she would have had going back and forth with people outside the building.
There is no question, sir, that we needed to improve our records maintenance. We're now up to 1 billion emails per year, and that is a huge challenge, and we are meeting it.
I'll give you one more question, and it would seem to me that some FOIA requests are more important than others. I don't mean to say that, but it's just true. And obviously, when it deals with the secretary themselves, and particularly a secretary who, it turns out, had such huge financial dealings or financial dealings that concern her and her immediate family, don't you feel that maybe in responding to these requests, you ought to make sure that requests directly affecting the secretary should bubble to the top?
That is very hard to do, sir, when, per statute, I have to respond to every single FOIA request within 20 days. And so in order to avoid more lawsuits, we treat these things as first in and first out, and then we're at least able to assert to the courts that we are trying to move through this in a logical and measured progression.
Thank you.